Yo, what's going on, y'all? Welcome into a brand new episode of Snaps. It's draft time, baby. That's right. It's the reason for the season here in spring. Who will be writing their legends on Sunday? And that's why I am so pleased to bring in Thor Nystrom, NFL draft expert, college football analyst for Fantasy Pros, Betting Pros. Follow him at Thor KU on X. X. Twitter. I've been following him for years. It's awesome, man. Very excited. Thor, thank you so much for joining us, man.
I'm stoked to be with you guys. I'm big fans of you guys. I was hoping to meet you guys in Mobile. I have to say, T-Bob, I saw the cut up you did that you put on X or Twitter, whatever we're doing. I was crying. I was laughing so hard. When you said the thing about your wife's search history, especially, I was already laughing, and then I started crying. Very, very well done.
Oh, fuck yeah, Thor! Thank you, man. Yeah, that's very Snaps-esque. I would say that's the lane in which we occupy. But you are an actual draft expert, right? So there is value here to breaking this stuff down. But somebody who actually knows. And like everything with the draft, I think it starts with quarterbacks. I'm an LSU guy, so watching the rise of Jayden Daniels was spectacular. It felt like there was a big three all year long, right? With Maye or Williams and Maye, and then kind of Daniels fighting his way in there. Has that held? How would you rank the top three guys right now?
For sure, for me, yeah. I mean, Daniels made it a big three, right? I mean, it was a big two consensus coming into the year, and Daniels, like you said, sort of shoved his way in. I didn't like coming into this year. I would have had Daniels coming into the regular season 5th or 6th round guy. I wasn't terribly impressed with him at Arizona State. Obviously, his first year starting under Brian Kelly was a bit better. This past year, he was awesome. Just objectively, you're looking for a comp for him. RG3 fully realized, I have to give credit to Danny Kelly of The Ringer, is the best one that I've seen out there. The best working one that I have before that was like a rich man's Colin Kaepernick, if you can take away like the political stuff with that. But it's like a guy who's in the pocket. You have the slingshot arm, one of the better downfield throwers that we have. And then the athleticism, like he does a really good job staying in the pocket. When he leaves it, it's that north-south athleticism, right? Like he just shoots out of the pocket so fast. And what I love about him, he admirably stays in there, keeps the eyes downfield, and doesn't leave until he absolutely has to. One thing I want to see him get a little bit better at is when sort of marrying the drifting in the pocket to keeping the eyes downfield, and then, being the runner and the thrower. Because it's like when he tucks, he's going to run, and the defense knows that. That's the next evolution of his game, but he's so good at throwing downfield, and he's so good as a scrambler. He definitely became the third guy at that big
Well, I'm going to stick on the quarterback theme here, and it's funny, Michael Penix after the first round of the playoffs was a guy that a lot of people were saying, well, maybe he jumped into the conversation of not only top three, but could he be the number 2 quarterback taken off the draft? Goes to the national championship game. The entire offense, I don't think, played extremely well. Michigan wins it. And then all of a sudden now I'm seeing, he went from a number 2 or number 3 quarterback to a 2nd or 3rd round quarterback. Like, has he dropped that much because of one game, or is he still considered by most people a first-round quarterback?
I'm curious your take on this, Aaron, because you've forgotten more about quarterback play than I'll ever know. But here's my take on it. I see Penix as the clear 5th guy right now, and that was only sort of, for me, solidified in Mobile. To me, he was objectively better than Nix there. And I went into Mobile higher on Penix than I was on Nix. And the better arm talent than Bo Nix. And when you start to differentiate their games, it's going to come down to medicals for me with Penix. If your team's medical staff more or less clears him, where there's not like the elevated risk that his career is going to end sooner, I would go with Penix. There's a couple of things that concern me about the on-field thing, so I'll get into that first before the unknown of the medical thing. The two things that concern me, and he didn't answer these questions in Mobile, so I'll say that to start. It's the thing of immediate interior pressure or pressure in general, but especially from the interior. You guys know he lacks the mobility. He wasn't helped by the couple of season-ending injuries that he had to the ACL, and obviously he had the 4 season-ending injuries in total at Indiana. Wasn't a mobile guy in advance of that, but again, certainly wasn't helped by that. And he's not good at throwing on the run in addition to that. So if you can push Michael Penix off his spot, he goes from being a really, really good pocket passer to not being effective, doesn't make good decisions on when he's moving and throwing on the run, and he's not very accurate either. That's probably going to be a staple of his game. If you can put Michael Penix behind a good offensive line and you have good receivers around him, that's when his game is going to play up. He's probably not a guy that's going to elevate the players around him, but if you have the good supporting cast around him, that's when Michael Penix, I think, could be good in the pros.
It sounds like Tua.
A guy like Tua, or a guy like coming from the same neck of the woods in the pros, maybe a guy like Geno Smith in the pros, a guy like that, where if you have that supporting cast around him, or maybe if you don't when he goes into the pros, maybe that's where you see he could fail initially. Like Geno Smith took a while because initially he didn't have that supporting cast around him, right?
Well, and I mean, I feel like we always undervalue the situational aspect in all this shit, right? Like, again, Tua, to Aaron's point, look at what he was under Brian Flores. Oh, but now you give him a next level offensive mind and look at what he can
and receivers.
be.
Well, who's four? Who's four, by the way? You said
who is
he's
four?
your clear 5. Is JJ 4 for you?
JJ is my clear 4. Yeah.
Okay.
So help me out there then. And I want to move off quarterbacks after this, but where because JJ's film is so limited, especially in some of these big games, like they just didn't ask him to do much. I know he scores very highly on the intangible front. Where have you seen the things like the arm talent and whatnot that you think would push him to 4?
Yeah, he obviously didn't get the volume of some of these guys, wasn't able to put the ball in the air as much as the two guys we're just talking about, right? Like Nix and Penix, for instance. The high leverage plays, though, when you're talking 3rd and long, you're talking in the red zone, his numbers in those situations was a lot better than those two other guys.
Interesting.
You put him into those situations. One of the reasons why I really liked Roman Wilson, right? Like he didn't get the volume as some of these other receivers, but when he was in those situations where he had to beat a guy one-on-one, his separation rate in one-on-one was ridiculous. 95th plus percentile by PFF. His receiving grade against single coverage was really good. And those 3rd and long and in the red zone was really good. It's the same thing with JJ McCarthy. When you start to look into his splits, 3rd and long, in the red zone, he becomes a killer. He's one of the best kids in this class in those things. The counting stats aren't quite as good, but when you start to cut it like that, also the year-to-year progression, he didn't get the chance until later on. Obviously, he was with Cade McNamara and stuff like that. But once he got to start, you saw that the first year was solid. The second year took a huge jump up with stuff like that. So I really like his game. And I also think he has the arm talent. In addition to the mobility, he's way better throwing on the run, certainly than Michael Penix, better throwing on the run than Bo Nix, too. I think he has a better arm as well than Bo Nix.
Well, let's go to the receivers real quick. And there's some really good receivers. And the top 3 guys projected: Harrison, Odunze, Neighbors. Do you see like kind of that order with Neighbors in the year that he had? Could he move up to be 1 or 2, or kind of what's your feeling on that position?
Yeah, it's almost like the quarterbacks where, the top 3 quarterbacks for me, it's so close, and it's almost like it's more about the scheme that you would run, right? Like with Caleb Williams, he's your classic off script guy. Caleb Williams, he doesn't want to know the play that you're running because he just wants to create. It's like, coach, I'm gonna, I don't want to know the routes. Like I'm just gonna create it. Drake May's the opposite, sort of. Like he's going to run the concept of your play, whatever. And Jayden Daniels for me is sort of in the middle, right? Like he's going to salvage the whatever is there for him. If it's not there, that's when he's going to create. The receivers, it's sort of the same where they're a little bit different, each one of them, right? Like Neighbors he's like your Ferrari. He's your speed type receiver, sort of like your guy for the modern NFL type in terms of that. Harrison, he has the nuance that his father had with the route running in that sort of stretched out package, and pretty solid in the contested catch stuff as well. And Roma Dunze is a tremendous contested catch guy who is way better getting off the line and way better with his route running and with the separation, I think, than he is given credit for. And I think he'll get that credit as people get into his film a little bit more. I think they got to see Marvin Harrison and maybe Neighbors a little bit more than they saw Odunze's film the past couple of years.
Looking for a super offer for Super Bowl 58? Well, the DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered. New customers can bet on the big game and turn $5 into $200 instantly in bonus bets. So, you like Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift and the Chiefs, or are you riding with Brock Purdy and the Niners? Either way, DraftKings has you covered with everything you need to bet on the big game. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code TBOB, TBOB. New customers bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 58. With code TBOB, the crown is yours. What? So you're also a fantasy expert, Thor, and I mean, this if it's like a lineman or something like that, it doesn't have to be from a fantasy perspective, but like, who are you looking at just overall, regardless of position, rookies that you think will have a stellar year one in the NFL?
I would go with Malik Neighbors because I don't see how his NFL team as a rookie is going to be able to help themselves from just throwing him the ball a metric ton. A guy that in the short and intermediate area, you're going to want to get him the ball. He's a yak monster. We mentioned that he's a Ferrari type athlete. The running back class, as you guys know, this year in the NFL draft is not quite as good. I don't want to go as far as to call it cheeks, but it sort of is there at the top. It already wasn't going to be good, but then we had multiple of these guys that we thought were going to enter that didn't. So for fantasy purposes, that position isn't quite as good. The quarterback class is awesome. The receiver class is awesome. Malik Neighbors is going to catch a metric ton of balls this year. He would be the guy that I would point to as a rookie for fantasy guys.
There you go. Well, look, we'll continue to check in with Thor, break down all the draft coverage, fantasy. That's Thor Nystrom, NFL draft expert, college football analyst, fantasy pros, betting pros. Check him out at thornystrom.com, Thor Koo on Twitter. Thor, you're from Minnesota. Like, were you like this? This all feels very Viking here. Is your legal name Thor?
My legal name is Thor, yes.
Fuck yes, dude. Fuck yes. That is dope. That's awesome. Well, Thor, thank you so much, man. And look forward to have you back on in the future.
Hey, appreciate you, boys. Thank you.
All right. Like and subscribe. More snaps coming your way.